and welcome to BNL Reviews, where reasonable opinions go to die. Today we're going to be talking about Tera Melos. Tera Melos is an American math rock band that originated from Sacramento, California. The band's original lineup consisted of Nick Reinhardt on lead guitar and synths, Jeff Worms on rhythm and backup guitar, Nathan Latona on bass, and Vince Rogers on drums. After their 2005 debut Untitled, Jeff Worms left the band, and right before their next LP release, Vince left the band, later being replaced by John Clardy, and the lineup has stayed the same since. Tera Melos is also known as one of the weirdest and most off-the-wall math rock groups. Today we're going to be ranking their discography, and we're only including their 4 major LPs and then 1 EP. We're excluding Complex Full of Phantoms because that's like a collaborative project with By the End of Tonight, and then we're also excluding Zoo Weather because that's like remixes and throwaway songs. So let's go! Now, just because this is in last place doesn't mean this is a bad album at all. Tera Melos doesn't have a bad album. All of their records are at least 7s and above. This one just had to come in last place. This album is like their summer record. They started to really build upon this sound, kind of more pop, sensible, kind of surf rock sound in their last release, Patagonian Rats. But this is much more pop infused and a lot more accessible than their last few releases. One track that really builds off of this sound is Sunburn, which is probably the best track off of this album. It has a lot of surf rock infused into the sound. It's very upbeat. It's plus 100 tempo. It's got like a punk rock feel, especially in the bridge with all the palm muting riffs of the and then it has like a real upbeat solo right after the bridge. All in all, it's a very bouncy song, and it's really fun. Some other tracks that really build off of this sound are Weird Circles, which is the lead single, I believe, off of this record, and one of their most popular songs. Then also Tropic Lame, which is kind of a deep cut, but it's really good. The only reason this album is in last place is because there are a couple tracks that really drag the album down as far as tempo goes, like No Phase and Snake Lake. I understand that they're in there as like little bridges in between bouncier tracks, but I feel like, especially No Phase, it really drags on. No Phase is like a 4.5 minute song, and it's really a snore fest. I feel like they could have cut that down. If they had to have that in there, they could have cut it down to like, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes, but even that is whatever. And then some of the tracks towards the end are kind of not the best, like Until Lufthansa or whatever, how you pronounce that. That's not one of my favorite tracks in their discography. So yeah, while there are some of their best tracks, they also have a couple stinkers in there. Excluding those little nitpicks, this is a great album. Definitely give it a listen if you're trying to get into the band. It's probably their most accessible release. So this will be great for newcomers. And yeah, it's just a great record in general. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. So many people I do not want to see. So many people don't want them standing next to me. In my mind, I'm crawling down the street. 7 my feet, 7 my feet, 7 my feet. So Trash Generator, this is their most recent release as of the recording of this video. This came out in 2017 and is probably one of their most off-the-wall releases since like Drugs or Patagonian Rats. It's definitely more experimental than X'd Out. In between the recording of this and X'd Out, or X'd Out and this, whatever, the band got a hold of a lot of gear and a lot of new pedals. So a lot of their sound is a lot more electronic and effects heavy. This is probably their most effects heavy release And this is a great release from the band with some of their best tracks to date, like Trash Generator, Men's Shirt, Don't Say I Know. Man, there's so many great songs off of this record. The only thing that brings it down is like the fact that they got a lot of new pedals. They decided to add in a couple like interludes or some parts in between tracks that are kind of effects heavy and don't really go anywhere. They kind of dilly dally, and I feel like those could have been cut out, but I guess they were testing the waters with their new effects. So yeah, this is a great release. Slightly better than X'd Out, because those are both really good records, but I feel like Trash Hunter is a stronger release from the band. So yeah, let's go to number 3. So Patagonian Rats, this is their first album with like actual vocals, excluding Complex, of course, but this is my favorite release in the John Clardy era of the band. This was the first album with John Clardy on drums. It's a really, really good album. They kind of made their sound a lot more accessible and poppier. Like they started having vocals, of course. There were less complex song structures. They kind of got rid of the tappy parts that were real complex, and then yeah, it's just a more accessible release. But that's not to say that they got rid of any of their really wacky ideas. They're still really an extremely weird band. This was also the release where they started embracing like some of the indie rock tendencies on tracks like West Ham United, Trident Tail, like the first 2 songs like So Occult and Kelly, like kind of the melodic side of indie rock. With a lot of major melodies and chords and stuff. There isn't really a bad track on this album. The only really like slower, like not slow as in tempo, but like slower as in it's not really doing it for me. Track is Frozen Zoo. This was like one of the singles off of this album. It had its own music video, which is really weird, but it was kind of had a copy paste feel with the riffs, like each different guitar part going in each channel and stuff. It wasn't one of my favorites, but other than that, this is a fantastic record. I'd give this an 8 or a 9 if I were grading these. This would probably be the one that I'd introduce to a newcomer of the band who isn't like super keen on like crazy instrumental math rock madness like Hella and Don Cab. They didn't come from that. They came from more like an indie rock scene. I'd definitely show them this first. This is better than X'd Out while still being pretty accessible. So this is a great release, and it's going to number 2. So this is a pretty controversial opinion. Many people would consider this their best record and one of the best math rock albums of all time. I cannot deny that, but I'm saving number 1 for my personal favorite because this is a very subjective list. But anyways, so yeah, this album is really, really good. This was back when the band was still a 4-piece with Jeff Worms, the second guitarist, leaving the band in 2006. So this is the band's rawest release, and the amount of ideas flooding this album is insane, with the crushing riffs in Melody 2, the crazy off-the-wall riffs in Melody 4, and then the 30-minute behemoth of noise that is Melody 8. This is an action-packed record. This is also considered one of the most like difficult to play and listen to albums in the math rock genre or whatever. And this is considered one of the strangest albums to come out of math rock. And yeah, this is a freaking amazing record. Every track, even the last one, is amazing. And I could not gush about this album more. So yeah, let's just go to number 1. So yeah, Drugs to the Dear Youth is my number 1. It's one of my favorite projects of all time. It's in my top 3, if not my favorite record of all time. And this is the band's Magnum Opus. So like, if their Untitled release was their Incredibles. This one is their Ratatouille. Um, so it might take a couple of listens to really understand like the complexity, the strangeness, and off the wallness of this release. And when you do take the time to really understand and listen to this album or EP, I'm just gonna call it an album. It's so good. It's so good. It's so. The sound on this record takes a lot more influence from different areas. It's a lot more progressive. I feel like it's a bit more experimental, especially with the sounds in the production used. It's a lot more spacey. It takes a lot from ambient and electronic music. And yeah, this is a very diverse record. And so this is a 20-minute long EP with split up 6 tracks. And yeah, the amount of ideas flooding this record is insane, like in the last one. Just from the 2-minute opener, you have 3 distinct parts. You have the beginning, which is a bit more electronic and spaced out, with a bunch of weird sounds coming in from each channel. And then you get to the middle, where it's a lot heavier, a lot of starting and stopping, very choppy riffs. It's awesome. And then it cuts right into the last bit of the track, where it's very spacey, synth infused, and it leads right into the next track, 40 rods to the hogshead. Now, 40 rods, that's a Simpsons reference.
My car gets 40 rods to the hogshead, and that's the way I likes it!
And it is one of the greatest math rock songs of all time. The opening riff to this track is probably up there with like Nevermen and FC Premix. And as far as openers in math rock go, this is an 8-minute song that has so many different parts to it. A lot of parts that do not repeat at all, but it all builds off of this one little riff that's just like 3 different chords. Yeah, it's just an amazing track. Go listen to that if you're just getting into Tera Melos. That's an essential song from the band, and probably my favorite song of the band's whole discography. And so that leads right into Guy versus DC Sniper. Man, these are some kooky titles, but yeah. Yeah, Guy versus DC Sniper is kind of like the outro. All 3 of those feel very interconnected, and like you couldn't have one without the other, or one without the other, whatever. There are 3, whatever. And Guy versus DC Sniper is very chilled out after the 8-minute like cacophony that is 40 rods. It's very chilled out, gives you some time to relax right before the 4th track in the set list, A Spoonful of Slurry. This is a very fast-paced track, and you can already see some of the indie rock and surf rock tendencies that you'll find on later releases like Patagonian Rats and Weird Circles starting to influence their sound. It's got a lot of bouncy riffs and cool tapping licks in the middle, and then the outro is super bouncy and really fun. It's probably one of the best moments on this record, when it goes from that little, where it's very chilled out, and then it builds up where it's like, and then boom, the outro hits, and then that leads into The Werewolf and Ben. And The Werewolf and Ben is 4.5 minutes long, and it has so many different ideas. The amount of ideas in this song make it go from like a 4.5 minute song to feeling like a 7-minute track. There's so many different ideas going everywhere. You won't hear the same part twice at all. And then there's like some heavier parts and then there's some parts where it chills out with some synths. And then that leads into the last track, Is Good for What Ails You, in parentheses. and this is a great. You couldn't have picked a better closer for this album. It's like very synth heavy. It's got a cool bass solo in the beginning, and it's only like a minute and a half or so long, and it's just the perfect closer to this record or EP or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, you can clearly see that I gush about this EP whenever I get the chance to. I just love it so much. And yeah, that's the Tera Melos discography ranked in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is so freaking stupid. Yeah, whatever YouTubers do, just do what they say to do, and make sure to smash that like button and smash that subscribe button. Hit the dislike button if you really like this video so much that you have to dislike it. And I don't know where I'm going with this.